YouTubers, Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel, bringing you another special edition of Housing Crisis. Um, this is a really important article because this is going to pertain to all the other bubbles all over the world. Um, this is by Douglas Todd. His point of view is pretty much spot on, and this is very important that my friends in Australia and New Zealand, pretty much all of most of the English-speaking countries, listen up and pay attention to this. It's by Douglas Todd, and it goes, "How would the Vancouver housing bubble burst? Look to China." Instead of looking to the United States when they had their bubble with Fannie Mae and Bernie Mac and all that packaged securities and all the crap they pulled, you got to look somewhere else because Vancouver is a bigger bubble. Vancouver's not a bubble. Vancouver's a hot air balloon. And it's reaching an atmospheric level that the balloon, the helium, can't bring it any higher anymore. So here goes. No question is more on the minds of Metro Vancouver homeowners and renters than how and when the region's housing bubble could burst. After stratospheric escalation, a punctured bubble would be a disaster for hundreds of thousands of over-mortgaged homeowners. Yet it could bring relief to those desperate to get into the housing. Last summer's BC's government 15% tax on foreign buyers and federal government's stress test for mortgages have slowed the volume of sales in Metro Vancouver, particularly at the top end. But despite suggestions from a few voices in finance and real estate, the city's bubble is intact. Prices remain at record highs after jumping 40 to 60% in 2 years. Affordability continues to be the crisis, especially for the young. No meaningful link exists between the city's TP'd median wages and runaway real estate values. The conventional wisdom is you can't be sure you're in a housing bubble until it bursts. Yet, there is little doubt Metro Vancouver is extremely vulnerable to a free fall. So play some Tom Petty in the background with Free Falling while I read this article. The Swiss bank USB rates Metro real estate as the most likely experience of a sudden downward correction of 17 large cities, including London, Hong Kong, and the longer the bubble lasts, the harder the crash. China is the key to Metro housing future. What is likely to cause the bubble to rupture? SFU urban studies professor Wu Kuiyan, UBC geographer David Lai, and others most closely watching China, the fast-growing powerhouse of 1.4 billion people. They make convincing case no other factor, including interest rates, is as important. The survey shows 40 to 60% of China's wealthy individuals want to immigrate and buy housing in other countries. In 2016, China's rich injected more than $33 billion into the U.S., Australia. I'm going to say that again. 33 billion, not million, billion, into U.S., Australian, British, and other global housing markets. We don't know how much they bought in Canada because, as Lay said, the country ranks among the few in the civilized world that doesn't publish foreign investment data. Wonder why. Yes, it's clear the west coast of Canada and the U.S. is the most popular destination for China's elite. According to the Huron report, China is now a fundamental of Metro's housing market, says Liu, author of Millionaire Migrants, Trans-Pacific Lifelines. Sounds cool. Sounds like a cool title. Even though Metro is small, the Huron Index shows China's moneyed class are more attracted to Metro than large gateway cities such as Sydney, London, and Singapore. Metro's housing market has long been tied to China's economy. Our real estate prices have gone up and down in tandem with China's fluctuating economy since the 1990s. According to data compiled by Bloomberg News, China's transnational citizens are especially drawn to Metro Vancouver, Lee said, for its clean air, climate, trusted universities, relatively short flight times, existing a Chinese speaking community that makes up only 1/5 of the population. And then it goes here to say, sorry, it's breaking up here. Given the key role China's wealth plays in Metro, that question both Wu and Lei ask is, will the country's hardline communist leaders finally succeed in stopping the intellect flight of its capital? All eyes should be on China's etiquette, which began January 1st, said Wu and Lei, will be more effective than others. It demands written pledge that the yuan converted into the US dollar will not be used to buy property overseas. It also creates government blacklist and harsher penalties for violators. If China controlled the outflow and its currency and keep it only to 50,000 US per year, it would greatly impact the housing market in Metro Vancouver, said Wu. I think this is a crackdown will be much more strictly enforced and will be longer lasting, adds Victor Singh of the University of California, San Diego, who researches the impact of the elite networks in China. China's Ministry of Commerce reported this week that the Chinese investment in offshore property has fallen sharply since last year. But Chan Hu Tang and Fitch's BMI research in Singapore said, I think the impact of capital controls is probably limited. China's financial systems are porous, and there is still, he said, a great desire for people trying to bring their money out. So I see it here, like when I go to Vancouver, when I'm in Vancouver, a lot of new faces. I mean, you never see the same person twice. There's a lot of new faces coming in, a lot of people investing, a lot of people, they're coming on these tour buses. The realtor rents these tour buses out and takes them to see properties, and then they start bidding wars, and it goes on from there, right? It's likely the largest restrictions will mostly make it difficult for middle and upper middle class Chinese to transfer money out, Lei said. But the problem for Metro Vancouver is that China's ultra wealthy, including its billionaires, have probably already transformed much of their money into secret accounts, with the Panama Papers revealing Hong Kong as the most crucible hub for laundering capital tax havens. The most important factor for metro housing is wealthy capital keeps coming out of China, Lei said. China has tried to block it before, but each time it keeps coming, and as long as the capital keeps coming, I don't anticipate our bubble bursting. Interest rates could be a secondary factor. Even though Lei puts great weight on China, he adds the rising interest rates could also play a role in the downturn. British financial analysts, he said, have noted that the country has the cheapest mortgage rates in 300 years. That's a long time, people. That's the lowest it's been. They cannot last. One day we will get a cumulative rate increase, he said, and they will affect the overstretched Canadians as well as the offshore investors. But you got to remember something. If Canada's so heavily tied into the housing market as it says it is, and needs to restructure and find something because the economy is based and it's heavily tied in, they're going to have to raise interest rates to stimulate. I mean, I don't have any education and I don't know anything, but I'm thinking if you're tied in that deep, and you're not exporting airplane parts and you're not building tanks and you're not, because the whole pretty much 30% of the world's at war, if you're not making tanks in your country and using the minerals and selling them at inflated prices, there's something wrong. We're not doing that here. We're dependent on the oil and the housing, right? And student loans, which is federal, right? But anyways, let's keep going. Metro residents are among the most leveraged. The Bank of Canada reports hundreds of thousands of Metro households have been indebtedness that exceeds their annual income by 150 to 450%. 150 to 450%. It exceeds their income. Let me take a breath here, because that's It's especially the people in the newer suburbs in Langley, Surrey, and the Tri-Cities who are mortgaged up to the hilt. I think he meant to say he's mortgaged up to the tits, Lay said. Even though Metro Vancouver and Toronto residents have experienced housing bubbles that deflated since the 1980s, Lay believes most remain in denial. They haven't paid attention to just how bad the subprime mortgage crash of 2008 was for the Americans. Millions of Americans not only lost their jobs, but their homes were foreclosed. Lay thinks there is some sense of betrayal fueled the rise of the populist President Trump. Yeah, and all else, before Trump was president, if there's a problem, you blame Russia. And then now that Trump is president, anything that happens, blame Trump. It's the Trump bump. Lay is also convinced that the outraged Metro residents felt overinflated housing prices was the political reason for Premier Christy Clark breaking out the usual pro-foreign investment stance applying the 15% tax. An Angus Reid poll revealed 90% of the Metro residents supported the move. That included most of these profiting on paper from a bubble. When Lay said worried for the future of their children and grandchildren, it appears that 15% of the tax may have had an impact on China's elite. The Huron Index reports that China's wealthy now rank Metro's Vancouver 6th instead of 3rd, as the city most wanted immigrated to and buy dwellings in. Los Angeles and San Francisco remain in 1st and 2nd. Vancouver has been replaced by Seattle. Remember the article I read a year ago? Boom, south of Seattle. Supersonics. New York and Boston fill the 4th and 5th spots, but 15% tax apparently did not puncture the bubble. One Metro Vancouver Index report housing prices have begun nudging up again in January. Offshore investors, say Lay, recognize the purchase tax is not permanent. They know Christy Clark already relaxed the rules, making it possible for non-citizens who pay Canadian taxes to pay it. That means, for instance, 170,000 foreign students and non-permanent residents in BC, more than 1/3 of whom are from China, are also allowed to freely buy luxury on their own homes in Metro and as proxies for foreigners. Some speculate the NDP would be tougher than Clark, whose party is politically embedded into the real estate industry, at restricting offshore capital in order for Metro housing to return to a semblance of affordability. But neither party has made crystal clear promises on how housing policy, so we won't really know what will happen until after the May 9th BC election. So that's the article, folks. I'll leave a link below for you people that want to read it and kind of, it's by Douglas Todd. Really good article. But it's going to be huge. And you know what the best part is I knew this from like 2 years ago, that the government is going to implement or put underlying things to help massage this so it doesn't crash, right? Or so it doesn't come to an end. Especially when you're the number one economic driving force of your province or state is housing, for example. You don't want that to end, because once the party is over, who's going to pick up the check? And that's the working poor that picks up the check. And I've been preaching this for years. Watch some of my old videos from 1 and 2 years ago. You'll be like, holy smokes, this guy's been on the money with most of his stuff. It's just the trend. You follow the trend. You know when the government's going to step in and start not helping the people that want to buy first time. Because look at the 10-year bubble, 15-year bubble. The people that were 10 years old at the time that were seeing this happen at 10, they're 25 now and they want to buy. They can't. And they're thinking, people don't buy till they're 30 now and 40. People don't buy housing or real estate till they're really old anyway. It's like, no. You reach a certain point, you can never pay off. Let's say you buy a house at 40, okay? And you do a 30-year mortgage. You'll never pay it off. I mean, if you live till 70 and you work well and everything, I mean, God permit. But I'm saying you buy a house at 20, 25, pay it for 30 years, you're 55, you retire, leave the house for your kids and go travel. That's, I think the way it was supposed to be thrown together. But what do I know? But anyways, I want to know what you guys think. Like in Toronto, or Sydney, or those places, if people are, I'm listening to radio shows from Australia and they're saying, stop picking on the foreign investors, it has nothing to do with them, and blah, 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 then go ahead and put the 15% tax that we did here in Vancouver and see what happens. We hit a brick wall here once we put the foreign investing tax, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not just saying it's Chinese. There's a lot of people from Iran, multi-millionaires from Iran. There's multi-millionaires from Japan. There's multi-millionaires from Iraq. Believe it or not, lots are coming in from Iraq over the last 10 years, and from lots of parts of the world. Russia, lots of millionaires coming into Russia, into the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach area. You know what I'm saying? And they're coming in with lots of money, and they're moving their money out of Russia. So it is what it is. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below. I don't want this video to go too long. It's already 15 minutes and 55 seconds. And if you're still watching this, oh my God, thank you for watching. And comment below. Let me know what you guys think.